Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, stop this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. Everybody in this context refers to us and our cats. You are free to feel however you want about Rand. He's a fictional character. Please don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
Bedtime for Ed is all the time.
Bedtime for Ed is 23/7. And it's whenever breakfast time, lunchtime, snack time, and dinner time are not happening.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we recorded in the morning.
I know, we have to record at a weird time because of my flight.
In the AM.
In the AM.
I don't have thoughts in the AM.
Yeah, I read this morning while I was eating breakfast, and I was like,
What?
I probably shouldn't read Wheel of Time at 7:30 in the morning.
It does require some wakefulness.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like I should be caffeinated for this.
Yeah.
But I wasn't.
This is Everybody Hates Rand, your friendly neighborhood Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Emily Jusha.
And I'm Sally Goodger.
And this is Avienda.
And this is Avienda. Oh my gosh.
Seeing the future? Question mark.
Yes, Avienda is seeing the future.
Question
And
mark.
it's a bad one.
And it's not good, my friends.
And I'm not going to say that we were right, but who could have predicted this?
Who could have predicted that the Shanshan wouldn't work out overall?
Yeah. Who predicted that a truce with this empire would not last?
Yeah, we've known the whole time. Although some of the implications of this little section are that the Shanshan are not the aggressors, which I find obnoxious, but we can get into
we'll
that.
talk about that. But first, we are under a big tree.
Yeah, Avienda is having a Siddhartha moment, sitting under the big tree. Last time we were under this big tree, Matt was receiving the world's weirdest CPR.
Yeah.
The world's weirdest and slightly homoerotic CPR from Rand. So it's good to be back, you know?
We're back to our roots.
Back.
Back, I think, the Shadow Rising / Fires of Heaven was the last time I was happy, so.
In life.
Yeah, and just in general.
That was pre-2020, so. When we pick up with Avienda, she has already been through the terangrial columns at Ruidaean and has witnessed the downfall of the Aiel from the Age of Legends to the present day, much as Rand did. And it seems that she has more or less seen the exact same things as Rand, which sort of displaces the theory that everyone is seeing their own personal lineage, I guess.
Yeah.
So she's seen that and now is like, well, this doesn't feel like it's going to be super relevant, like, as an experience for people anymore. Like, I already knew this. And anyone who comes here is going to be like, yeah, I already knew this, so what's the point? She's like, and it's thematically relevant because I've been worrying about the Aiel's relevance generally.
Yeah.
So she's kind of like, hey, I have this newfound capital T talent to identify terangrial, which she conveniently had a couple of books ago, only after Elaine had been carting around a giant load of terangrial. But she's like, maybe I can use that to go suss out what these terangrial are doing. I don't know how many people are around now. It's very funny because when we've visited Ruidaean in the past, when we visited in Shadow Rising, it was like, no one's there. It's an abandoned city surrounded by magic fog, you know, very isolated. And then at the beginning of Fires of Heaven, like, the Aiel were using it more or less as a base of operations while they prepared to cross the mountains and go into the wetlands. And it seems like people are still, like, living there. This is a major water source now, so you'd think it would become a major urban center. And Avienda mentions, like, when she showed up, there were, like, Guy Shane, like, cleaning up the courtyard, you know, sweeping and whatnot, which mostly I was like, how do they sweep between the columns? Do they experience the Aiel?
Yeah, every day, are they just like, oh, here I go.
Here I go through the fucking...
Yeah.
I just gotta sweep every step I take.
Yeah.
Sweep as much as I can. I don't know, who knows. But they all disappeared as soon as Avienda showed up to give her space. Avienda's like the first person to go through Ruidan since the events of Fires of Heaven, which is funny. But Avienda doesn't, like, mention, like, and there are people standing in their front porches like, hey, bestie?
With their binoculars watching what she's doing.
What's she doing? Uh-oh. She's going back.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Oh, no, that's not right.
Quick, give her a broom while she's in there.
Yeah, it is strange to wonder, like, where do they go? Are there houses? Last time we were here, all the houses, like, had their roofs blown off.
Yeah, who knows?
It was, like, all in shambles.
You'd think there'd be, like, construction work constantly going on in the background. And I know construction workers. They're not going to stop just so one person can have a rite of passage.
Are you joking?
Are you joking? But we're on a clock here. Anyway, so that's just, like, a funny thing. But Avienda goes up to the Terangrial columns and is, like, investigating them. And is like, okay, this is way too big for me. You know, she, like, touches them with the power and is like, ew.
Yeah.
This is a weird alien entity. It seems to be the abysses looking back, as it were. But she kind of turns to go and takes a step and is plunged into what feels to her like the past. Yeah. Because it's a very, like, you know, people scrambling around like bugs in the dirt. You know, it's a very, like, pre-technology, prehistory, it feels like.
Yeah, and at the same time, there are, like, cars, essentially. So she's like, obviously, this is the Age of Legends. Because
there's weird technology. Yeah. They have this other group of people that is being interacted with are called Lightbringers or something. And she mentions something about they're building a road across the waste. And it's like, okay, that sounds like train tracks, you know, the way it's described. But the point of view itself is from a young woman who is experiencing starvation, along with pretty much everyone in what is apparently the Aiel Waste. And they've been reduced to, like, following caravans of travelers around and, like, digging through their food and kind of stealing from them in order to survive. This young woman has had 3 siblings and they have already died of exposure or starvation. And in this very short point of view, the Lightbringers, quote unquote, find her rummaging through the trash, raccoon style, and are like, absolutely not, and raise their weapons, which sounds like guns to us. Seems like she's been shot. So she's dying, and, like, the last thing Avienda hears through her point of view is, like, the Lightbringers being like, I hate the filthy Aiel, blah, blah, blah. Avienda's like, what? What is this? The freaky Age of Legends or something? I'm interested to know when you exactly pinpointed that this was the future.
Oh, almost immediately.
You weren't, like, following along with Avienda's plot. You're like, okay.
It was like, if you saw the past the first time, it makes sense that you would see the future the second time. And they also say in this section something about the Empress of Ravens, and it was like, we know that's the Shanchen, so.
Yeah. So, much like how when Rand originally went through the columns, he had a progression in time from the present to the distant past. You know, he was going slowly. As he walked forward, he was going further back in time. Avienda, for some reason which I can only believe is to keep us suspended in tension, starts in the distant future and moves slowly back toward the present day.
Yep.
Which to me sort of like ruins the framing effect. You know, you think the directions should both
Right.
converge on the present day.
Yeah.
But, you know, whatever, that's a small complaint. I'm not going to, like, summarize every point of view, but basically Avienda goes back through several generations of Aiel, and it's like she goes all the way up to her own children. Mm-hmm. She apparently has quadruplets with Rand, because as we've referenced in the past, he's just so fertile.
His seed is unparalleled.
It's incredible. Gross. My Mega Sperm.
Yeah.
Dragon Sperm.
Oh, gross. And Dragon Sperm.
So Avienda apparently had quadruplets who are all a little weird, capital W weird. They're all like, we have had the one power we've been channeling since we were babies. We popped out of the womb and we're like, oh,
Balefire.
Balefire with their eyeballs.
Yeah.
Like baby Superman. And everyone was like, ah!
Everyone was like, oh, okay, these kids are a little much.
The idea of everyone panicking because a baby comes out and starts shooting laser beams, and then 3 more babies
Also shooting laser beams.
When does it end? There's another one, quick! Oh. That gives me the The poor Aiel midwives aren't being paid enough for this
No
shit.
way.
Anyway, we see Avienda's children dealing with the immediate aftermath of the last battle and what is referred to as the Dragon's Peace, which seems to be some sort of, like, treaty that Rand has developed in conjunction between, like, the continent and the Shanshan. Mm-hmm. And the Aiel's main complaint is that Rand left them out of it. You know, did not, like, include them as a full, like, country or a people to be signed on to in this treaty. Which seems like a major oversight of Rand's.
Yeah.
And frankly seems a little out of character.
Yeah.
Like, that he would just be like, oh. I mean, then again, Rand is the worst emperor.
Yeah, and not a very good negotiator if he doesn't have the power of Taviran on his side.
Yeah, he'd just be like, okay, I'm not very good at this. But the Aiel are like, that's so weird, and we hate it, and we interact with Ruark's son, whose name is, you know, Ruark Jr., I can't remember. But he's like, yeah, I met your dad, and my dad told me that your dad didn't, like, really, he was just mega uncomfortable with the Aiel all the time, and just really had a hard time assimilating culturally. So, but there is obviously still major... Hey, Tibble, I'm really worried you're gonna...
Delete the podcast?
The podcast. The Aiel are, like, having, like, little battles with the Shanshan, but it seems to be, from this point of view, a, like, Aiel aggressor thing. Like, the Shanshan go to do something, and the Aiel are like, well, we'll just attack them.
Yeah, it also sounds like the Shanshan have been taking Aiel channelers.
Yes.
So, not to go all the way back to a chicken and an egg situation, but it's like the Aiel are attacking in large part. One, because of just kind of who they are as people and how much they hate the Shanshan. Valid.
Yeah.
And 2, because their people are being taken.
Yeah, the Aiel have plenty of valid reasons to attack the Shanshan. Number 1 being that they're not part of this fucking peace treaty, so they can attack whoever the fuck they want.
Yeah.
And number 2 being that the Shanshan are the aggressors in that they are kidnapping Aiel people and turning them into slaves. But the framing
Yeah.
of the narrative and through Avienda's point of view as she, like, goes all the way from the distant future to the most recent future, weird, is she's like, my children and my children's children are to blame for what happens to the Aiel, as though if her children and her children's children had just sort of rolled over, nothing bad would have happened.
Right.
So, like, she is framing them as the aggressors, which I find services the overall Robert Jordan project of the Shanshin as a reasonable invading empire.
Yeah, if you just don't attack them.
Then they'll only kidnap the percentage of the population that they want to enslave, and
They'll leave the rest of you alone.
that's a small price to pay, I guess.
What? What type of busted logic is this? Yeah, because essentially the end of, I can't even remember any of the kids' names except Janduin, who's named after Rand's absentee Aiel father.
Rand's dad he never met.
Yeah. It's like, is one of Elaine's kids named Tam? What's going on?
Oh my god. Yeah, could you imagine if Rand followed the Harry Potter model and was like, these are my sons, Ishmael and Belal. This is my son, Asmodean.
That would be iconic.
It would be extremely funny.
This is my son, Asmodean.
Asmodean, middle name, I can't remember it. Asmodean Moiraine.
Yeah, that's a bad bitch.
So I guess I'm not too mad at Rand for naming a child after his absentee father, because
Yeah.
at least it's an Aiel name. you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
He only knew 4 Aiel names, I guess. Imagine if the children had just been Ruark,
This is Ruark,
Janduin, and
Gaul?
Gaul? Female. Gaul, femme.
Female.
Gaul
Yo.
with an E at the end.
Golly.
Gaulette. I swear I'd even ever met Gaul.
I don't know.
I guess there's maidens. Sulin and...
Sulin and, what's the one that died?
Oh yeah, Leah.
Leah.
That would have been very Randish to name his daughters after women he felt
Yeah.
responsible for. Anyway.
We get through this, like, weird section where all of Rand's incredibly weird eldritch children
Yeah,
are,
entitled also children are like...
they're, like, 17 or some
Yeah,
shit
they're
at
like
this
teens.
point. And all the Aiel chiefs are deferring to them, which does not feel like something an Aiel chief or wise one would do. But what do I know? I've only read 12
I mean,
of
I
these
think
books.
the laser eye incident
Yeah.
probably cowed them significantly.
That's probably true.
That I'm making up. That's the only explanation. Because otherwise, you're right. The Aiel would be like, hey, you fucking stack some rocks like
Yeah.
any other Aiel child. We don't give a fuck who your daddy
Who
is.
your loser dad is, who didn't include us in this treaty. Why would we respect you?
Also, like, if Avienda was at all responsible for parenting these children, she would knock the entitlement right out of them.
Totally.
She'd be like, fuck your dad.
Yeah. I don't give your dad's who?
Your dad's who?
Your dad's not here.
Your dad died doing
Yeah.
his little Satan,
Exorcism. Shit.
exorcism of the world, so calm down.
Calm down, maybe.
You're not in charge.
I'm in charge.
Yeah.
They're like they're essentially talking about whether or not they should just like attack the Shanshin, like go more on the aggressive, and eventually Avi and his kids are like, "Fuck yeah,
Fuck yeah, let's kill the Shanshin. And everyone's like, okay.
yeah." And again, this is framed as a bad thing
Yeah.
versus it being like,
We're supposed to be like, dun dun dun, this is so clearly like the beginning of the end.
the beginning of the end to go for the Aiel is to go on the aggressive against the Shanshin. And it is kind of weird. Like, I know I joked earlier about like the Aiel as a people are very militaristic, but one of the like reasons presented is that one of Avienda's daughters is like, this is what the Aiel do. Like, what are we if we're not warriors? Which plays into this whole crisis Avienda is having about what's the central identity of her people. But yeah, there's also like this running thread throughout each of them with Avienda being like, the Aiel have lost honor. And every single one of these like snippets of the future, she's like, these people are dishonorable. These people disgust me. And again, we are seeing like people who are living under extreme starvation in the desert, like getting scraps of trash or begging to trade with people because all their children have died of starvation. And she's like, these people have no honor. They're despicable.
Yeah, Avienda is very clearly supposed to come away from this whole experience being like, well, clearly what I can do is help the Aiel to not lose their way. Because what has happened is that they have lost sight of what's important in our culture and opted to just, you know, the beginning of the end was them misunderstanding our whole purpose and thinking that we're just a militaristic people. Which I think if that was the project, then having the future, you know, having Avienda's future telling go to as close as her own children was a big mistake.
Yeah.
Because there are so many questions there that beg to be answered. Like, if Avienda's children are only in their late teens, early 20s, where the fuck is Avienda herself?
Yeah.
Where the fuck are all of the Aiel we know?
Yeah.
Like, Avienda had to give birth to these people. Did she die in childbirth? Did every other Aiel that we know? Where's Ruark? Where's Amis?
Yeah.
Where are all these other people who we know wouldn't just be like, yeah, fucking do whatever you want. The dragon's children are in charge now for some reason.
Yeah.
It's incredibly bizarre to just be like, yeah, within a single generation, this much changes. And, like, obviously what the writers were trying to do was have their cake and eat it, too. Be like, oh boy, it goes all the way up to Avienda's own children with Rand. Like, look how freaky that is. We're following her own descendants. But you can't do that and also be like, and everything, you know, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, especially if Avienda is the one thinking about this whole thing, about how do we build a new identity for the Aiel. It is like, is this showing us what she does? What happens if she just absolutely takes no action at all? I thought this was like...
if she just lays down and fucking...
just, again, it perishes somewhere, which is not what I have heard happens to her, as far as I know. So, yeah, it's really strange. It's really strange, and I also think, yeah, just like Emily said, not super effective to the project of being like the Aiel are losing their identity. I think we've seen that since book 4, obviously with all the splintering. But I also think, like you were saying, there are really strong groups of like central characters who have adapted and still been able to like hold to their honor code and understand that it is an internal thing about how they behave with the world, not necessarily some project handed down from the past in order to define their entire people. And if that's gone, they have nothing, you know?
Yeah, I almost think this whole section, this whole scene would have been better placed way back in book 5 or 6.
Yeah.
When it felt like more of a crisis that the Aiel were losing their identity.
Yeah.
That would also have, you know, given Avienda like a journey instead of her just kind of like tagging along with Elaine or whoever and being like, I've got to fucking make nice with my sister wives in order to
bear Rand's quadruplets.
Yeah. Like, Avienda hasn't been doing shit this entire time, so it would have been great if way back when she got this shit scared out of her and was like, I personally have to ensure that the Aiel holds true to their cultural identity.
Yeah. And that we understand what that is in the face of, you know, mass world-changing events.
Yeah, but taking this now for what it is, Avienda also witnesses her own grandchildren then interacting with Elaine's descendants, who are holding the throne of Andor still. And Avienda's granddaughter, or whoever, has, like, raided the Shanshin Palace in Ebudar and stolen some contingency plans for what to do if the dragon's peace is ever broken by the other countries. And they present this to the Queen of Andor as though it is, like, an imminent plan rather than a contingency plan. And Avienda's like, oh my god, they're lying, they have no honor, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Again, in warfare, the question of morality is a little bit different.
Yeah, a little bit different. And I was chewing on this a lot this morning, because at first I was like, yeah, that kind of sucks to drag an entire nation into a war based off of a lie. But it's also like, Okay, but they do have those contingency plans, which means they are ready to use them at the basically any slight transgression from Andor. So it is like you juggle with like, is it good to be on the defensive versus being on the offensive? And then you also just, again, like, I really cannot get away from the core ethical issue here, which is, like, nobody on this continent should be letting the Shan-Chen operate the way that they operate, dragons, peace or not. Like, fuck Rand and that stupid fucking treaty. Like,
yeah, we also get a hilarious line, I think, from Avienda's granddaughter, who's like, the Shan-Chen monarchs now aren't very nice, unlike Tuon, the original empress who brokered this entire peace with Rand. She was reasonable and could have changed things. And it's like, okay, well then, why aren't we watching Tuon's descendants fuck up?
Yeah.
Like, why is this on Avienda's?
Yeah, why is it on
kids
Avienda?
To save the fucking world from the Shan-Chen.
And also just like Robert Jordan / Brandon Sanderson's undying commitment to try and tell me that Tuon is a good empress is, I'm gonna go to Brandon Sanderson's house and throw this book through his front window. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Do we one of the last points of view? One of the last points of view was Tuon enslaving and torturing women. What do you mean she's a good person?
It's fine though, because those are just women. Forget about it. Like, in these early points of view, or rather, you know, late points of view, Avienda's kids and whatever are like, the White Tower is falling and the Black Tower's so, like, they're clearly still aggressing against channelers.
Yeah. And it's like, are you guys just gonna let that stand?
Yeah, but it's fine. It is hilarious to think of the Ashman being like, the Black Tower's fallen, but we are still guerrilla warfaring.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, tell me more about that.
Yeah, slay. Yeah. Who's doing that?
Who's in charge? Or are they just like Grady and Neil's descendants?
Grady and Neil's descendants, adopted children.
Grady's ugly ass son.
I love my ugly son. He's doing guerrilla warfare against the Shan-Chen.
Anyway, we slowly see the Aiel pushed out of the wetlands and back into the waste and reduced to, because the Shan-Chen are like, we have defeated you militarily very effectively, and now we're just like making it impossible for anyone else to trade with you. They're, you know, becoming the Shan-Chen win, clearly.
Yeah. And
then take it out on the Aiel by being like, and you and your children's children and your children's children's children are never going to be able to, like, we're going to completely ostracize you as a people.
Yeah, which is effectively
long-term genocide.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And, yeah, again, everyone in the wetlands, lacking their spine, just lets this happen.
Yeah. Like, one of Avienda's descendants is like, the big bad was when the other countries entered this fight against the Shan-Chen. And I'm like, in what way? Like, that isn't explained to us at all?
No, it's just this, like, passing. It's like the understanding a child would have of World War II, you know? Yeah. Like, I don't know. Japan entered it, and then the world exploded. It's like, that's not quite what happened.
Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. So it's just like, yeah, it's not explained to us. We're just given to understand that, like, again, Avienda's grandchild absolutely just screwed the pooch when she brought Elaine's kids into it. Or grandkids, like, or whatever. Okay. You're like, how does that make any sense?
It doesn't.
Like, sure, it probably escalated things, but it sounded like a situation that was escalating anyway. So stop trying to place all the blame on the Aiel for trying to protect themselves against an enslaving totalitarian empire. What the fuck is this section?
Yeah. So, overall, this section, we could just talk about plot holes all day.
Yeah.
Because it's riddled with them. And this section is very much biased in the favor of the Shan-Chen.
Totally.
Into, as always, making them seem like a reasonable group of people who are just, you know, they're scary because they're the big dragon that you don't want to poke. Mm-hmm. And the Aiel are just so fucking stupid for poking them. Mm-hmm. You know, of course they're going to commit genocide against your people because you started a war against them. Started a war. Quote unquote.
By trying to rescue the people who'd been captured.
Yeah. But the authors, in their, like, sleight of hand way, don't want us to think about the overarching geopolitical problems here of the Shanshin versus the Aiel, blah, 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 blah. What they want us to think about is, and this is why they are bringing Aviendha and Rand's kids into it, is like, okay, clearly Aviendha and Rand specifically need to do something to avert this disaster.
Yeah.
And so this now, instead of becoming a, like, geopolitical problem, is becoming a personal character problem. Which, you know, just sort of feeds into one of the Wheel of Time's projects, which is, like, individuals make choices, and that, you know, the shake of a butterfly's wings or whatever the fuck changes the future.
Sure.
So this is all, like, meant to steal Aviendha's resolve to change things somehow. And now she has some crucial information, like, okay, clearly Rand's gonna come up with something called the Dragon's Peace, and I have to make sure the Aiel are involved in it in a better way.
Yeah.
So.
Dumb.
Yeah, that's, like, the section, I guess.
It's just, silly.
Yeah,
Nonsense.
it's hard because it's clearly trying to, like, recapture the magic of what was happening in the Shadow Rising when Rand originally went through the columns.
Yeah.
Which I maintain was one of the most, like, interesting sequences in the series at large.
Sure.
And this one just does not pack the same punch at all, despite, like, following the same, you know, dancing the same steps. It does not have the pizzazz that the original had.
No. No. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a thought to kind of wrap up what I had to say, but I don't think I have anything else to say. It doesn't really work. And it's leading us towards what I'm sure will be a plot that I hate, which is Rand brokering treaties. So.
With the Shanshin.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah. Okay, well, this can just be a short episode because, I don't know. I don't feel great about it. I do think it is interesting to watch the authors absolutely flail with the problem that they've created for themselves.
Yeah.
And also to try and recapture the magic of one of the series' most powerful sequences.
Right.
And fail.
Yeah, fail quite miserably.
And, you know, of course, this being a sort of, like, oracular vision begs the question of, like, is this set in stone? Is there something our protagonists can do to make it different? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, or is it very, you know, Greek tragedy in that whatever Aviendha ultimately does will
just feed
will just
into
make this happen.
Self-fulfilling prophecy, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, because we didn't see Aviendha in that at all, or get any indication of what she has done, we're supposed to be like,
who knows? I guess my final thought is I don't really know why the authors feel like they have to address this problem so intensely.
Yeah.
This problem of the Aiel and their cultural identity. I think a lot of it makes sense. Like, the Aiel have been an incredibly important cultural group and presence in the book, and so, like, we of course wonder what happened to them in the future. But maybe we said this last time, it's like that's an okay problem to leave up in the open. Like, what is going to happen to this group of people? Just to Emily's point, this plot would have worked if it was introduced in book 5. I don't really see the point of it now. I feel like we're really making a mountain out of a molehill with a problem that doesn't feel like a problem to me, the reader.
Yeah, I think they're a little bit at the finish line, and I think it's partly a thing where they're like, oh, we've made Aviendha one of our main characters, and she actually has nothing to do. Mm-hmm. She's incredibly irrelevant. She's basically, like, one of Rand's girlfriends, and that's her entire plot. Which, maybe to Brandon Sanderson's credit, he was like, oh, that's fucking...
Yeah, that sucks.
That's sexist and gross. Yeah. Like, we need to give her something to do that is more important, and not... is tangentially, but not directly tied to her relationship with Rand, but is more to do with her relationship with her people and her culture. So, like, okay, yeah, I get that you were backed into a corner there, but at a certain point you just kind of have to throw in the towel and be like, not every character in this series is going to be doing important things.
Yeah.
Aviendha's a major channeler. She's now a wise one. She is going to be, like, doing things in the last battle, regardless, so...
Yeah.
okay, that's fine. It's just to have an Aiel point of view in the last battle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Like, I guess I would feel more passionately about that, but like Avienda got nerfed so long ago as like,
Yeah, way back in book 6 and 7.
yeah, as when she just started following Elaine around like a lost little puppy. And like I would love if that was different and she'd been doing stuff all along, but at this point I'm like, exactly, Avienda is there to tell me what the Aiel are thinking and doing, and
Yeah, you can't unfuck this narrative at
Yeah.
this point. Like, it's a little late. So,
I forgot to bring out our mood tracker, but I would say my mood is quite mad.
mine is sad. I'm just like, what?
Yeah, that was not good.
Yeah, I'm not like sad for the Aiel or whatever. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm sad that it came down to this, you
Yeah.
know? Because this is paralleled so strongly with such an iconic sequence, I'm just like, wow. The downhill battle.
Yeah, the downhill battle and just like the presentation of like, well, if only those savages have behaved, none of this would have happened.
Yeah, pretty dark.
Sorry to use that word, but it feels very much like what's being presented.
I will say the very first thing that Avienda sees is with the like train being built across the waste is very much meant to evoke Native Americans in America during the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
And that's not great either.
It's not great of just like yeah. Again, the equation of the Aiel to indigenous peoples and the way that they are despicable and dishonorable and scavenging through your trash and how dare they want to eat something, and they're just totally isolated and ostracized.
Yes, yeah. What we're saying is like what we are presented for as the reality of the Aiel is what the white perception of
Yeah.
Native Americans at that time was. So we're playing into like stereotypes in
Yes.
a very upsetting way.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying.
I needed to clarify that to myself.
Yeah, it was just like, of course, none of these things are true. These are people who've been starved and are just trying to survive. But these quote-unquote Lightbringers who give off a very, like, cowboy
Yeah.
in, like, the movies energy, I just think they're inhuman. So,
Dark.
dark.
And it's not going uphill from here, my friends, because the next section will deal with Elaine taking the throne of Kyrian, a thing that I care even less about than the Aiel's
Cultural problems. Can you just leave France alone?
Yeah, let France be France. How dare you? It will not just deal with Elaine taking over the throne of Kyrian, it will also deal with the long-awaited and, last referenced about 600 pages ago, meeting between Rand and the Borderlander leaders. Like, the last time we saw Rand, he was like, okay, this afternoon I'm going to go visit the Borderland leaders, and that was like 500 pages ago, so...
All of this has happened
Wild.
in one afternoon?
In a day. It's insane. All the Perrin stuff.
Yeah, parents lived several days in one afternoon.
I can't keep doing this. I'm so tired.
Oops, sorry.
Okay, so that's what we'll be doing next time.
We'll be here next week.
We're sad and mad, but thanks to Glenna McKenzie for our theme song, thanks to our patrons on Patreon, and thanks to our followers on social media.
Yeah, we love you guys. Thanks for supporting us and helping to feed Ed.
Yeah, I'm just jiggling Ed right now.
He kind of loves it.
He's so mad.
I guess he doesn't like to be jiggled as much as he likes to be patted. I think we talked about that, and we don't watch Outlander.
He's also falling off the couch mid-fall right now. Anyway, what's your, tell me what your sign off
Oh my
is.
gosh. So I have to be in speech therapy, essentially. I'm working with a speech pathologist because of my many musculoskeletal issues. I've been having difficulty swallowing and like pain with swallowing. So I've been working with a speech pathologist on that, and he, last time I saw him last week, he was like, I also want to do some work on your voice. He's like, because I've noticed your voice gets really strained. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, if we take the strain off your voice box, it will help you swallow. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. And he was like, yeah, essentially you have really bad vocal fry. And so we had to do a ton exercises where he was trying to teach me how to like project my voice forward in my mouth and throat so that it didn't get in that thing. And I was just like, this is the story of my life.
I didn't come here to have my podcast reviewed. 1 star vocal fry.
I know. I was like, okay, sure.
Absolutely brutal.
Yeah, just another person in the world telling me
Your vocal fry is bad.
your vocal fry is bad.
Bastard.
I know. I was like, well, it's not my fault. Apparently.
All right, everyone. Have a good week.
Bye.